Okay, hi everyone. This is Gemara review video number 15. We are continuing on Berakhot Chaf Amud Bet. We already talked about Shema. We talked about Tefillin. We are starting over here Chayavim B'Tfilah. We're going to do the Tefillah section. We'll do the Mezuzah section, and we're also going to do the Berakhot Hamazon section. So let's start over here Chayavim B'Tfilah. So this is again 4-step process. Quote from our Mishnah that women are obligated in Tefillah. I brought the Mishnah kind of over here at the top, just if you guys want to see it for context. And here we go. We can highlight over here. This is our quote that women are obligated in Tefillah. And here we have a switch, right? And instead of asking Pshita, we actually have an explanation. So we'll put this in yellow. It's Rachbe Ninhu. So it's explaining over here. The Gemara is explaining why are women obligated in Tefillah? Because Tefillah is Rachamim. The act of prayer is an act of kind of mercy that God grants us, that we can turn to Him and ask for things, and He will help us. And this is something that both men and both women would need. So women would also be obligated in prayer. Again, this is not talking about times of tefillah, maybe also not even talking about nusach, but this idea of being obligated to kind of turn to God or call out to God, and kind of be looking for His rachamim is something that both men and women would need, and that's why women are obligated in tefillah. And we'll just put just highlight this like Aleph over here. I know we didn't talk about this, I think, in track 4, but maybe in track 2 we spoke about this, just that the Hagaot Habach kind of ends his Gemara here, and he kind of leaves out everything else until Kamash Malan. But we're gonna keep reading. Okay, so now the Gemara kind of, even though it skipped Shita and gave an explanation, it is now going to ask the usual question. So we're gonna skip to orange. Mahu Detema. So again, asking over here, what might I have thought, what would I have thought had the Mishnah not gone out of its way to tell me that women are obligated in Tefillah? And then we have our Havamina, our assumption, Hoyol v'ktiv ba erev ha'boker v'tzarayim, kem mitzvat aseh shezman grama dami. And here we'll put some quotations. Here we go. And since it's written, and here you can look at Torah Or to find this pasuk, which I believe is in Tehillim, Erev HaBoker v'Tzaharayim, that we should call out to God at night, in the morning, and at noon. It is I'm going to underline this, it is like a time-bound mitzvah. And Dami at the end, Domeh, means that as well. So again, the Havamina, the assumption is that had the Mishnah not told us that women are obligated in Tefillah, I might have thought from this pasuk that seems to say we should call out to God 3 times a day, that maybe Tefillah or prayer is like a time-bound mitzvah. And if it is like a time-bound mitzvah, then maybe women are exempt. But our conclusion over here, we'll switch to purple. Kamash Malan, we learn from this, meaning our original statement in the Mishnah that women are obligated in Tefillah, that no, really, women are obligated in Tefillah, and it is not a time-bound mitzvah. And over here, you can freeze the screen if you want. This is, again, just kind of going over everything we saw, dividing it up into the 4-step process with our little bit of a switch, right, that instead of step 2, we have an explanation instead of Pshita, but everything else is the same. Okay, so let's keep going in the Gemara. So now we're going to do the next section that deals with mezuzah. So again, we're going to start off with a quote from the Mishnah, going straight through, right, that women are also obligated in mezuzah. So step 1, women are obligated in mezuzah, the quote from the Mishnah that we see over here and over here. All right, so the Gemara is now going to challenge that. So again, now it's working with all 4 steps. Pshita, this is obvious. Obviously, women are obligated in mezuzah. It is not a time-bound mitzvah. So why, again, if it's not a time-bound mitzvah, of course women would have to keep it. Like, there's no time demands on a mezuzah. You always have it on your door. And yeah, that's our challenge. So now the Gemara is going to ask a question, right? So Mahu Detema. What might, same question as always. Here's our question mark. What might I have thought had the Mishnah not gone out of its way to tell us that women are obligated in mezuzah? And now we have our Havamina. Hoyol v'itzkish l'talmud Torah. That since I might have thought that itzkish means make a hekesh, make a connection, that you make a connection from mezuzah to learning Torah. So we're going to look at Rashi in a second on the other screen. But Bekitzur, just to sum it up, Rashi basically explains this Hekesh a little bit in more depth. That basically, we're going to see just similar that we saw with Tefillin, that we have two psukim that are next to each other. A pasuk about learning Torah, and a pasuk about mezuzah, that you write them on your, parchment, you put them on your walls. So you might have thought that you make a Hekesh, and just as women are exempt from learning Torah, because the pasuk says, you teach your sons and not your daughter, I might have thought we connect these two psukim because they're next to one another in the Torah, and just as women are exempt from learning Torah, perhaps they are also exempt from mezuzah. But Kamash Malan, here's our conclusion in purple. It comes to teach us, meaning this original statement in the Mishnah goes out of its way to teach us that no, really the Havamina is rejected and women are obligated in mezuzah. Okay, and you can freeze your screen here if you want to see it. I just kind of wrote everything out. We have our 4 steps. Right here's our Hekesh, kind of explained in a little more depth, and our conclusion that really women are obligated in mezuzah. And over here, I just brought you from the worksheet Rashi with the English, so we can kind of read through it together, where he explains in a little bit more depth what is this Hekesh that is being suggested in the assumption in the Havamina that we would learn from learning Torah to mezuzah. So we can read through it together. You can follow along in the Hebrew or the English. So Nakish mezuzah l'Talmud Torah. Let's connect through a Hekesh mezuzah and Talmud Torah. Dichtiv, as it says in Dvarim, v'limadatem otam b'nechem v'samich le uktavtem. In Dvarim, we have first the pasuk of teach it to your sons, the Torah, and next to it, uktavtem, right on the walls of your house. And again, right, this is 2 different things. So teach it to your sons is talking about, right, we have over here, learning Torah. And right on the walls in your house is obviously talking about mezuzah. And here it says, here's our ma and off parallel. Talmud Torah nashim turot. Just as women are exempt from learning Torah, afal gav is the same thing as afal pi. Even though de'ein hasman grama, even though Torah is not a time-bound mitzvah, Rahmana patrinhu, the God or the Torah still exempted them, right? We said Rahmana can mean Hashem, can mean Torah over here. So even though, or just as women are exempt from Talmud Torah, right? Why? Because the pasuk says teach your sons, but not teach your daughters. And again, this doesn't mean that women can't learn Torah, just that they are exempt. They're not obligated to. So too, you would think women are exempt from mezuzah nashim p'turot, kamash malan to nashim chayavot. That's why the Mishnah comes and goes out of its way to teach us that women really are obligated in mezuzah. And here Rashi adds something new, and he kind of gives a different reason. Why are women also probably obligated in mezuzah? Not just because it's not a time-bound mitzvah, but because dichtiv, the pasuk says, L'man yirbu yemechem, you will have a long life if you do this mitzvah. Gavre ba'u chaye, nashe lo ba'u chaye, betimya. And he says over here, Betimia, we'd said, right, is whenever Rashi writes that he's telling you to punctuate it with a question mark, right? So we can put a question mark over here. And ba'i, we know, means inquire, require, desire. Here in this context, it would mean desire. So if the reward for mezuzah is that you have a long life, men would want a long life, but women wouldn't want a long life. Meaning, obviously, women would also want a long life, so they would also be obligated in mezuzah. So again, Rashi just telling us 2 things, doing a little bit of a deeper dive here into the Hekesh, right, teaching us these 2 psukim and their connections, right, that like we have the connection of V'limadatem and the connection of Uktavtem, that's our Hekesh over here, right, we can kind of draw a little bit of an arrow, right, here's our Hekesh over here, and he kind of explains it, then he also gives an additional reason, maybe it's not just because it's not time-bound, maybe also because the reward is a long life, which women would want as well. Okay, now we have our final section of the Gemara. We are starting over here to talk about Berakhot Hamazon, and that is going to be the last few lines over here. So again, the same 4-step process over and over again. Berakhot Hamazon. This is a quote from the Mishnah. We see over here that women are obligated in Berakhot Hamazon. So we start off with a challenge. Pshita, right? Wait a second. This is obvious. Obviously, women are obligated in Berakhot Hamazon. It's not time-bound. You can eat whenever you want. Right? There is no time obligation on benching. So again, of course women would have to do it. Why does the Mishnah have to teach us this? We go again straight to the question, Mahu Detema, step 3. It's actually the beginning of step 3. So Ma'odatema, put a question mark where it's supposed to be a question mark. What might I have thought had the Mishnah not gone out of its way to tell me that women are obligated in Birkat Hamazon? And now we see our Havamina, our assumption, what we might have thought. Hoil kti b'teit Hashem lachem be'er basar lechol v'lechem b'boker l'svoa kem mitzvah aseh sheshman grama dami. And we can put some quotation marks over here. We have a pasuk after it says ktiv, right, going b'teit Hashem lachem all the way until l'sova. And if you look at the Torah, or it tells you this is a pasuk from Shemot, talking about the Jews in the desert. So what's our Havamina? Let's explain it. So since it's written, right, in Shemot, when Hashem gave you at night meat to eat and bread to eat in the morning to kind of be satiated, to be full for. So again, here talking about the man and the slav. So the fact that here it refers to two kind of times, right, that like God gave them dinner at night and he gave them breakfast in the morning, you might have thought that this is kind of implying that there are set times for meals. And if there are set times for meals, then maybe there's also set times to bench. And it's kem mitzvat haseh, shazman grama dami. The same thing we saw before. Ke we know means like, dami means similar, right? That maybe, since it says erev and boker when it comes to eating, and benching is connected to eating, maybe Birkat Hamazon is like a time-bound mitzvah. And if it's like a time-bound mitzvah, then women would be exempt. But no, here's our conclusion in purple. Kamash Malan, it comes to teach us, meaning this original statement in the Mishnah, that women are obligated in Birkat Hamazon, comes to teach us that no, really, despite this pasuk, women are obligated in Birkat Hamazon. And over here, feel free to freeze it if you want. Here's the Birkat Hamazon part, right? Pshita Ma'odatema. Here's our, that we thought, the Havamina, maybe it's like a time-bound mitzvah, but our conclusion that no, really women are obligated in Birkat Hamazon. And that is the end of this video.